Today we're going to talk about tax filing status. We have single, married filing jointly, married filing separately, head of household, and qualifying widower. Tax status, filing status, does not correlate to your relationship Facebook status. So, single. Single means you were unmarried. As of December 31st of 2024, if your divorce came through on that day, you're single. If you've never been married, you're single. If you had a marriage annulled, fun fact, you're considered single. It's like the marriage never occurred, even if it's annulled in a later year. So that is the epitome of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It can also mean that you were legally separated as of December 31st, 2024, or widowed and not remarried at that time. Married filing jointly. You were married as of December 31st. If you got married on December 31st of 2024, you were married for the entirety of 2024, according to the IRS, so you can file married filing jointly. If you didn't live together, but you were not legally separated or divorced, you can still file married filing jointly. If you are a surviving widow, you can still file married filing jointly on the year of your spouse's passing. If you were common law married, according to state law, you can file married filing jointly. Married filing separately. A married couple can choose to file separately. It typically results in a higher tax. But there are reasons that people might choose to do this. One is the spouse has debts or obligations that are going to offset a refund, such as past due child support, past due student loans, or a tax liability that they incurred before you married them. So this is a good question for that first date. Follow me for more relationship advice as well as tax advice. Back to that Facebook relationship status. So also, if you file a joint return and your one spouse owes a past due amount, the other spouse can be considered an injured spouse, and they can file a Form 8379 to receive their share of the refund shown on the joint return. So the injured spouse cannot legally be obligated to pay the past due amount, and they must have made and reported tax payments or claimed a refundable tax credit. Head of household. Who qualifies as head of household? Again, we're not talking about who wears the pants. This is referring to tax filing status. So head of household means you were either unmarried, single, or considered unmarried. So who's considered unmarried for qualifying for head of household, even though they're legally married? So this person would file a separate return from their spouse. They would provide all of the, paid more than half the cost of keeping up their home. They would have lived apart from their spouse during the entire last 6 months of the year. And they would have provided the main home for more than half the year of a qualifying dependent child, stepchild, or foster child. So you have to have paid more than half the cost of keeping up the home for a required period of time, which is typically a year. And you had to have had a qualifying person living in your home for more than half of the year. A qualifying person. What is that? Qualifying person for filing as head of household is determined by a qualifying child who is single, whether or not that child actually qualifies as a dependent, a married child who can be claimed as a dependent parent, or a qualifying relative who lived with the taxpayer more than half the year and is one of the relatives listed on the chart and can be claimed as a dependent by the taxpayer. And last on the list, qualifying widower. You can claim qualifying widower on your taxes as filing status if you have not remarried since your spouse passed away. So in the first year, you can still file jointly, even though they're deceased. And then the 2 years after that, you can file as a qualifying widower. And then obviously, if you're not remarried at that point, you can likely claim head of household. You do have to have at least one dependent child. It can be adopted, step, or biological, but it cannot be a foster child. And you do have to have paid more than half the cost of maintaining the home. And that's a wrap. That's all I have on filing statuses for you today. I'm going to, following this, or the very end of this, is just a list of standard deductions for this year. based on the different filing statuses for people. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And I will be posting on more to do with taxes as fast as I can, because I know we're coming up on the end of January where people can start to file.